All right, so for the next video, we're going to do something a little bit more practical. We have an actual model that in some ways was actually broken in ways I wasn't aware of. It's what happens when you model while talking in class. But in other ways, I broke it on purpose by moving things around and cutting in so that we could kind of see these tools in action. Before I do that, though, I want to point out this link is, I forgot to mention it in the last video, it's going to be up on the site, and I'm going to be linking to Autodesk a lot because Autodesk has a lot of it's basically a user's manual for Maya, and it's overwhelmingly large. But when we have days like this where it's like there's specific words to learn, like terminology, I want to link to that in case for those of you that learn better by reading instead of listening, you would be able to use that. So like if you wanted to know more about the edit mesh menu, it goes into all the basic components, and it's very wordy. It's also filled with examples of what not to do because, oh my goodness, that's terrible. But it is like the technical description of what happens. So extrude pulls out new polygons from existing faces, edges, or vertices with the options to transform and reshape new polygons as they're pulled out. So we've been using extrude all year, but that is like technically how Maya thinks of it. So I'm going to be linking us to pages from this site based on what we're specifically doing in class. Bring that back over there. All right, so my very broken hammer. I broke this in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. If I go into vertex face mode, I already can tell you I will find hidden faces there and there and there and there. I also know that if we fake smooth it, you see that these get crisscrossed. Those were cut in the wrong spot anyways, but which should have been obvious. But you can also see this weird like puckering right here that doesn't happen on this side. That's telling you something. And then also, there's an irony here. I pulled these out to be like, yeah, we're gonna have like non-manifold polygons. Just wait till you see how many are in this model that I didn't even notice, or half noticed and forgot. So broken in a lot of different ways. This one should be obvious. That's not how you cut into that. But how do we fix it? Okay, so we can use this mesh cleanup tool to at least show us some more problem areas. So I'm gonna do select first just so I can see. I want it to tell me all of the things, and I'm basically, well, I know there's no, well, I hope there's no faces with holes in it, but I'm basically clicking everything except four-sided faces, and I just want it to tell me where there's problems. Oh dear. So what it's telling me is, well, I'd love to know what those are. I see these vertexes highlighted. That's non-manifold geometry. I see lots of faces highlighted. I'm pretty sure those are all non-planar faces, and there's so many more down here. There's not any faces with more than 4 sides, but if I reset this tool, go back to select and say 4-sided faces, there's an awful lot that aren't 4-sided because they are 3-sided. Or actually, no, there was a couple that were more than 4-sided. It's just there's lots of other problems. So I select everything. The whole model lights up. We know there's some issues. So we're going to address this one first because it's what I have open. And so what I would do is I would kind of go through and say, oh, wow, lots of problems. Let's fix one first. This one's the easiest one to fix. I'm not even going to use the cleanup tool because we know how much I dislike how this cleanup tool functions with this sort of thing. So I am going to go into edge mode and be like, this is not how you cut into this. Thank you very much. And then I can run this thing again and, oh dear. Extra pieces somewhere. Oh, I deleted those the wrong way. Now it should, there it is. All right, so they're now all 4-sided. So you can use this tool to like help you clean up things by making sure you use the right tools like I didn't just now. And then we can go in with the multi-cut tool and cut this in properly which involves, when I built this, I did not do the best job. I'm holding down shift to get the 50% thing, but when I add this geometry in, and I hit enter when I'm done, I don't cut from corner to corner to corner. No. There's really no good way to do that and end up with four-sided polys. And I know that I made a three-sided and a five-sided, but that's actually intentional, because when you have a three-sided right next to a five-sided, what you have is a four-sided poly in waiting. Hit enter and it's done. So that's one sort of simple way to make sure that it's going to work. Sorry, clicking in places and talking apparently is something I can't do at the same time. There it is. And I hit enter. And so now, and when you're done with the polycut tool, make sure you go to another tool. I'm constantly accidentally having the polycut tool open all the time. But I look for four-sided faces, I hit apply. It says, yes, they're all four-sided. Now I can ask it how many are non-planar, which is a lot, but actually this is less than what was before. We know a lot of them are non-planar though, because I know I made a mess out of this model. There's not enough resolution up here. We are going to address that, but we're going to address some other problems first because I don't want to have one thing get in the way of the other. All right, so next up, we know that there's hidden faces. I went into vertex face mode and I saw all those lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to cleanup now instead of just selecting, because I know there's no good way to show me where those faces are. And I'm going to say, I'm going to turn off everything. You can also edit, reset your settings to make sure it turns off everything. And I'm going to say get rid of edges and faces with 0 length and 0 geometry area. And I do that. And I can go into vertex face mode and check my work. I'm cheating a little bit because I know where to look because I'm the one that broke it in the first place. But there you have it. And I'm very curious now, because I know these faces were selected when I had everything selected. I'm very curious to know what it thought was wrong with those. Non-planar. Now, the funny thing is some of these, you look at them and you go, yeah, non-planar. Obviously, that's a huge area for that one, thing to go over. You wouldn't expect it out of this as much. I mean, I know it's a little squashed on this side, but some of these are not looking super, wrong. So there's a few ways we can handle this. And one of these we've actually talked about in class. You can see this whole thing is mangled. If we go to edge and I go to edge loop and I go to scale and I scale it in this direction, which technically shouldn't even be a thing if this edge loop is set up properly. But I'm scaling it down so that that edge loop is flattened. Now I can't do that with this last one because I also have to include all these. So I'm going to go into face mode. And I know I've said before, you have to switch back and forth between modes depending on what you need selected. So for these ones, I just did the edge because the edge loop is the thing that needs to be in line. And if you put this one and this one and this one in line, all the faces end up in line. Well, the edge of this, the very face of this, is a face. Oh, forgot those things stay selected. But I can select faces. Oh my, lots of stuff selected. That's not supposed to be. How'd that happen? Yeah, we want to make sure. Oh, that should not be. Hold the bus. Do we see how far back this is? What on earth did I select to put that back there? So I'm going to go in here. I'm not seeing anything. We can use our manipulator tools to tell us what's going on. Okay, that's better. I had something weird selected for sure because this needs to be flushed with what I'm changing. The fact that it was back here told me something was wrong. Something weird was selected. There we go. So I scale it down. So that flattens out, and that should. Well, now I got nothing. Now this is definitely you see some weirdness in those lines, right? Stand by 1 second. Nothing like pause on the video to go searching. I think it was a normals issue. So I either that or I had the wrong thing selected. But I went to mesh display conform under normals, and maybe because from when I extruded something was a little amuck, but that allowed it to figure itself out. So it put them all in the right direction. And when I hit apply, it's just only the other half of this that's a problem, right? So cleaning up of this type of thing is it's twofold. Number one, it's fixing stuff like this, which again I broke that on purpose, just for the sake of class, because I thought I would need to. There we go. If we hit apply, okay, so it fixed these two over here. So some of that can be fixed by things like this. But some of it has to be fixed by adding geometry. There is geometry that has to be added, and that requires the insert edge loop tool in some cases. So in order to, now I would probably go in and fix these a little bit first, do that scale trick across the board, right? And then, nope, oh, good grief. I don't want whatever that tool I just accidentally selected is. There we go. Insert edge loop tool. So we can put more resolution in here and see how that affects things. Okay. So if you're going to have things that have this severe change, you need more edge loops. Now, unfortunately, I cut this in first. So if I wanted to add edge loops to this, I would have to do a bit of fixing, which includes probably putting this out, or I should just put that in afterwards. Like I could, because I didn't actually do anything to the top of this yet. So technically speaking, a little double click action going on here. It sucks, but delete edge vertex. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Delete edge vertex. And I can check this for four-sided faces and see if they all are. Yes, they are. And then I could use my insert edge loop tool right now. And this is what I'm talking about, where like sometimes you just gotta, redo stuff. And it's so much easier to put in more edge loops now after I got rid of that extra one that didn't need to be there temporarily than it is to like put whatever the crown on the top of this is going to be and then try to add these extra edge loops. So this checking your geometry thing doesn't need to be something you save for the last part. It's something you can do as you go. And so I'm going to get these four corners right here, and I'm going to bring them down a little bit and see if I can't unsquare this a little bit. Make this a little less. It's not really symmetrical anymore because I messed around with it. I also want to, nope, I'd have to select too many things. But hopefully maybe that will have, it still sees these as non-planar. But especially this, there needs to be so many more edge loops coming up here. It's such a big step. There we go. So insert edge loop tool, you click on one that's going the opposite direction of where you want the new edge loop to go. And sometimes you get lucky and that's all you needed. A lot of times you don't. Yeah, no, it's still, actually, no, these are now fine. So there are things we can, there are things we can do. But I know there's also a few that are down here from when we first started, and it was a square, and you can tell, I mean, obviously, come on. Obviously, this is no good. And so we can, nope, wrong program. Round this out a little bit. It's still not enough. But yeah, anyway, you can, I would be able to, now that I'm thinking in terms of non-planar geometry, it's very obvious there needs to be like more resolution here. Resolution refers to how many edge loops you have. This obviously does not have that many, definitely doesn't have enough, and I'm not referring to the edges not being beveled, which is also a problem. But before I go beveling any edges, I would really have to start looking at this non-planar stuff and figuring out like how I want to fix that idea, how I want to get make this so that it's there's enough resolution that it can move all these different places the way I need it to. And part of that might be redoing this claw, for example. I'm looking at it going, I hate it. It just doesn't seem worth fixing. It's got so much wrong with it because when I extruded it, this was not properly set up. It's also not symmetrical. But yeah, that's what you would do before adding in bevels and things like that. So this is more of a like check your work kind of a thing rather than a correct an error kind of a thing. And the last thing that we want to check, because I definitely didn't fix it yet, is this non-manifold geometry. Now I can check for it, have it, oh, whoops, I don't want that. Go away, go away. See that, and then I could potentially just go inside and see what I find. And there they are. And so I can delete. I think that was all of them. Interesting. It's selecting those, and yet there's nothing there. So there's a couple of different things that could be happening. I might need to tell this thing to conform normals again, because sometimes surface direction can be involved. I can also go into, oh, for God's sake, there we go, go into vertex mode and tell it to merge because there could have been something going on there. Oh, let's see if we can, I'm going to pause this, see if I can figure out exactly what it's telling me. Nothing like the Google to spell it out for me. So yellow means it's a geometry problem, and green means it's a UV problem, which I don't have any UVs, so I don't care. But there's no amount of geometry changes I can make to this that would point that out. And I always forget this deals with UVs because I don't deal with UVs very much. It's not just this right here that tells you about. So there, basically, because there was the non-manifold geometry on the inside of this, it was probably thinking it had to lay out UVs a certain way, and now it doesn't. So it's a good thing this didn't have any UVs laid out in the first place, because now I don't have to fix them because they weren't done. So we fixed the non-manifold geometry, we fixed the hidden faces, we fixed some of the non-planar faces, certainly not all of them. That is a much larger task at hand. But I want to impress upon you, this is a very useful tool. It's very helpful for finding problems. It's not going to fix everything. It's not going to fix everything perfectly, and you can break things with this tool if you kind of, just throw everything on there and say clean up. All right, so use judiciously, use to find the problems. But this is why I held off on showing you this, because it's a lot of technical terms, and we still have to know how the geometry works, and we still have to know how to navigate through it, using the scaling trick with edge loops to fix non-planar faces. We still have to know to go to mesh display and, tell the normals to conform because maybe those are off. There's still a lot that we need to manually do, even if we're using this tool.